So Lisa Frankenstein is a teen horror comedy, which is set in the 1980s, and it's very much exaggerated as you'd expect for being set during that decade. But this is a horror comedy that I feel like kind of works mostly just because of its energy. Because I was fascinated by, who's making this film. You have Diablo Cody of Juno fame doing the screenplay, and you have direction by Zelda Williams, fresh director here. And I was very much looking forward to this film. Just so I like the idea of the concept. I like the style that they're kind of going for with it. And for the most part, I feel like it really delivered on the absurdity that it was trying to go for. And I think that's just because it has a lot of faith in being ridiculously cheesy. Like, it does, it's meant to be set during the 1980s, and it's got like the neon lighting and the throwback, hairstyles and fashions of the era, and, the accompanying soundtrack, all that stuff, the standard like Stranger Things treatment. But it also has that tone and that, that kind of like, almost kind of like a, I don't quite want to say like Tim Burton, but definitely like that cheesy 1980s horror style where characters always feel just at least a little bit cartoonish here and there in the way that they're used. So the central character is Lisa, played by Catherine Newton. And she's like an outsider, basically like an outsider of her high school. She likes to hang out around graveyards. She likes to, she likes to read and, like indulge in poems, and she's fascinated by, horror stuff and old movies. She just, she loves all that stuff. And they establish her as someone, who's kind of, she's having a rough time. She's endured a trauma of having her mother being murdered, and then her father, played by Joe Trest. I think that's how it's spelled. Joe Trest, who is just kind of like a lovable but pushover dad with the big glasses, who marries quickly to Carla Giucchino, who is just this, like the worst stepmother, just like the worst mother that you could expect for Lisa to have. Like, she's, she works in a psychiatric clinic, but she's very much into self-help. She's got a big ego, and she just wants to dominate all of Lisa's life and just steps over her father to kind of like discipline her in any way that she can. So Lisa's not having a good time. But she's, she's got she's got a new sister because of this marriage, and her sister takes her out to, have a party, even though that party doesn't go well. In fact, it goes horribly when like she goes like, oh, I'll take Lisa out, it'll be nice for her, she'll get to meet some guys, have some fun, but she ends up getting drugged at the party and almost getting raped. So not fun. But thankfully, like her dreams do come true, where, she's obsessing with this one gravestone of this, forgotten soul. And she feels like, oh, I connect so much more with the dead. And then as luck would have it, one dead guy rises from the grave on one stormy night, played by Cole Sprouse. And although this guy can't really talk and he's got decayed flesh, Lisa relates to him. And it's basically like, kind of like hiding a monster in her closet type deal. So she finds herself fascinated by this guy. It's kind of like an E.T. scenario where she's like, introducing him back into the modern world and trying to relate to him, even though he can't really talk back. But the funny thing too is that she discovers that if she can get more new body parts for this corpse, he can start to become more alive, and almost more like magically alive. Because I love how they set this up, because like the whole way that she's able to kind of bring him more back to life is through like a malfunctioning tanning bed. So every time that she finds like a new body part, she attaches it to him, and then she throws him in the tanning bed, and he just magically comes out less decayed and more human and closer to like the boyfriend that she's always wanted. Like, there is another boy in the film who, that she is lusting after, but ultimately she kind of comes to realize that no, it's it's this, Frankenstein's monster type deal that I'm more attracted to, especially when he becomes more attractive as the film goes on. Like, he shows off, like, once he gets, like, better use of his hands, he shows off that he can play piano beautifully, so they have, like, a funny little duet. Well, not really duet, like, he plays and Lisa sings horribly, which I might add is hilarious. That's perfect. And like, and the funny thing too is, like, the more that that Lisa's Frankenstein monster kind of becomes more human, Lisa becomes more confident in herself to kind of like embrace more of like the goth look. Like, so she starts dressing more in black. She becomes a little bit more braver and more cynical and more open. And it's mostly because she's murdering people to get more body parts for Frankenstein. Like, she lures, like, the guy who raped her, of course, out, and she takes a specific body part. And as you might expect, because this film is meant to be ridiculous and absurd, you can see where this is going. Like, she keeps getting more and more body parts, and at one point, she is going to get a genital. A genital does come into the equation, and it's over the top. I'll just say that. Like, the way that, she acquires it is very ridiculous, and I don't want to spoil it here just because it's so absolutely ridiculous for how it's revealed here. And aside from just like the violent vulgarity of it all, and just like the weird throwback style here, just like the script is just loaded with funny lines, just like, and I think, like, they're funny lines, but like, I think it requires like a perfect cast to deliver them beautifully. Like, Lisa's sister, Taffy, played by Lisa Sobrano. She delivers her lines perfectly because, like, she's meant to be like she's trying to be like a supportive sister, but she always says like the wrong things. Like, at one point, she's worried that their mom has gone missing. And Taffy just says to Lisa, what do you have to worry about? Your mom's already dead. But she, and it's an insulting line, but she says it like it's the most matter of fact thing and acts like it doesn't offend anybody. Which just makes it so much more ridiculous. There's also like a few like in jokes here and there. Like, at one point there's a Rocky Horror joke that's just kind of like casually tossed in there. Like, it's not, they don't draw to it as much. There's a few other more blatant references, like Trip to the Moon is referenced a few times very blatantly in like a number of scenes. So they showcase, that Lisa's like a big fan of old movies. Even dropping like some silent movie directors at one point in the film. So they do go the extra mile to make her that kind of like geeky type of girl. And I think like the whole film is like ridiculous, but I think it's ridiculous enough where it still has like some heart to it. Like, because like my one worry about the film was about like halfway through, like, I'm having a great time. It's uproarious. It's like the story's building, there's some character, there's some heart to it, but I got worried that it's just going to keep trying to be more ridiculous and more over the top, that it's just, it's not going to hit as well when it gets to that finale. But I think what makes the film work is that it maintains the absurdity by still making Lisa's story genuine. Like, they don't throw in like some last minute bizarre twist that doesn't make like this romance between this dead guy not culminate. Like, it does have a fairly satisfying ending to it that feels, like it feels suitable for like a romantic film and also for like a monster movie. And I think there's a decent balance there of trying to make this like a cheesy 1980s horror film, but also a teen rom-com with horror elements to it. And it mostly works, but I do have preferences, because like, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who do not like this film simply because it does feel all over the place. And if you're not in that kind of B-movie cheesy acting vibe, this might not gel with you. Like, if you're not willing to go along with the over the top nature of this film, you're probably not going to be on board, because it does kind of get all over the place and get a little bit messy in its narrative here and there. But what makes that work is just like the energy of all the actors, just like the ridiculous script by Diablo Cody, and just like the general energy that all the actors bring to this. I couldn't stop laughing at this film. There's so many moments where I was just genuinely smiling and laughing and just loving how ridiculous this film went and how far it goes with it. And yes, if you are expecting Lisa to have sex with the monster, don't worry. They make sure that this is a horny Frankenstein film. And not in like the way of like, because I said this about Poor Things from last year, that Poor Things is very much a horny Frankenstein movie. This is closer to that. This does feel more like, what if Frankenstein wanted to, screw his monster. But you frame it as like as a teen rom-com, and you make it kind of like sweet while still making it a bit vulgar and cynical here and there. And for the most part, I really enjoyed this film. I was laughing so hard at most of the time. I loved its spirit. I loved that how it didn't relent on its energy. It felt like I said, I was a little bit worried in the second act, but then the third act started up and it kept building on what it had, and it became more interesting and fascinating and more fun as it went into that third act, which I think is especially for like a concept like this, you really need to be able to sustain it the more that it goes along. And in that kind of like cheesy 1980s B-movie horror, teen comedy type vibe, I feel like for smushing all that together, it really works here. Like, I really think that Zelda Williams knocked it out of the park here. It helped out a lot by Cody's script, which is like fairly sharp, but not afraid to have a lot of fun with this material. And yeah, I actually really love Lisa Frankenstein, this teen horny monster movie.